What's up, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Claw Combos. Today, Sheila and I are bringing on Dulany Dent, who is the CEO of the Nanny Network, a boutique family care staffing agency service based in Baltimore, Maryland. We're super excited to have Dulany on and just hear about her experience as a business leader and her strategic vision with the family care industry, especially in the crazy time of COVID. So yeah, stay tuned. It's an awesome episode we have for you guys. Grab a drink and enjoy. Hey guys, this is Sheila and Maya Dunn, and you're listening to Claw Combos. Let's go, guys. Let's get it done, bitches.
So kind of to start us off, Dulany, could you give a little bit of a background as to when you decided to get involved in the Nanny Network? What were you doing before, and what encouraged that dive into this?
Sure. No, I'd be happy to. It was really kind of unexpected, I guess. So I've been the CEO of the Nanny Network for almost 15 years now. And the way that I was introduced to it was when my husband and I were actually pregnant with our first baby. We now have 3 children, but this was 16 years ago, and pregnant, and knew I was working in private equity at the time, and I knew that I wanted to go back to work. And so I kind of immediately, my type A personality, started looking for a nanny, right after I got pregnant, and was really on it and thought for sure that I would have plenty of time to find someone. And then sure enough, my due date was approaching, and I didn't have my ducks in a row the way that I wanted. And so someone just casually mentioned to me that they thought there was a nanny agency in Towson. We live in Baltimore, Maryland, and Towson is where our office is. And so I went online. There was one web page about this agency, and turns out we ended up hiring a full-time nanny through the Nanny Network. So I actually am not the founder of the Nanny Network, but instead I acquired the Nanny Network in 2006. And so I used the agency as a client and saw a ton of room for improvement. And so then approached the founder to see if she had any interest in selling the company. And as luck would have it, she was ready to move on 11 years later. So.
Wow. So can you walk us through your mindset because it's not a very typical thing to hire a nanny and then say, oh, I'm going to go buy the whole company. What was kind of the steps of, or the process that led you to actually making that decision?
Yeah, so I know it did. Like I said, it was unexpected kind of as it happened. But as I look back on things now, I think everything really did kind of lead up and build to that moment where I was able to make a pretty quick decision, what felt like at the time anyway. I pursued an entrepreneurship endeavor in 1999, I guess it was. Actually, a Colgate alum had asked me to get involved with a startup company that she had founded called the Women's Executive Network. And so I had, tried, I'd been in an entrepreneurial setting, working in a startup, and really enjoyed that, and being able to contribute at, I at the time was only 25 years old, but really feeling like I could contribute to the design of the company. And so then, I worked in finance, and I went and got my MBA, and kind of always knew that I wanted to have a family. And, I really enjoyed my work in finance, but also knew that I wanted to kind of run something myself, especially once kids got into the mix. And so my passion for cheering on women in the workforce as well, that's another kind of common theme throughout my career. I think all 3 of those things combined when I was working with the Nanny Network and using it as a client, and I saw this opportunity, and I also saw what a huge impact it had on the lives of working women, and I was, feeling that myself. It all just kind of made sense, and it just, so it did feel kind of, like a gut instinctive type of thing at the time, but in hindsight, I think all the pieces had been played out and kind of laid out for that. So.
Yeah, I'm curious. Your experience, because you had that more entrepreneurial role at a younger age, and then you obviously have been the CEO for several years. Would you advise someone in your similar position to try to get involved in a current company acquire them or start from the ground up? Like, what were the benefits of acquiring that company?
Yeah, that's a great question. For me, when I looked at what the company did, because I thought of starting up my own, but when I thought of the position I was in as a new mom, wondering if somebody would want to go with a startup childcare agency compared to one that had, been in existence for 11 years. So the Nanny Network did have a reputation and a brand in the Baltimore community. And so I felt like that was very valuable, in pursuing this line of work, and also, taking out a competitor in the meantime. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, you become them. Yeah.
On the topic of being a new mom, which you're helping, when you took this role, you were a new mom. Did you feel like how did you balance that? I mean, definitely being in the CEO position might give you some flexibility, but I'm imagining it was a lot of work for you as well. Oh, I guess you had a nanny, so that
I did have a nanny. I've been lucky to have very wonderful nannies. So it's interesting, actually, to be honest with you, at that kind of crossroads in my career, I think it felt like, stepping from a place where I was working 50 plus hours per week in private equity to becoming an entrepreneur. I meant to kind of downgrade a little bit, like in terms of just, having enough bandwidth in my life to be a new mom, but also knowing that I love to work and I'm, super passionate about this mission of helping women in the workforce. And so it felt like when I left my private equity job that I was doing something that would create more time in my schedule. But, and then over the, when we were first having our kids, our kids now are 15, 13, and 8. So it's different. It's a lot different now. But I worked more part-time when the kids were younger. And that was part of the thought that I had all along is, my mom didn't work outside of the home, but she was always very just industrious and organized and ran our house like a business. And so I was always inspired by her. And so I thought I'd have a good balance. And I have. I have no regrets. It has been a lot of work, though, because as you guys know, when you're the CEO and you're running the show, you can't shut off. It's, your brain is just kind of constantly going. There's always more to do and improve upon. So it is important to, and you have to really put boundaries in place to keep that balance.
Can you walk us through exactly what the Nanny Network does for anyone listening who might be interested?
Yes, of course. We are a family care staffing agency, and we service Baltimore, Washington, D.C., and Richmond, Virginia. And our core business is backup childcare, where we actually work with a lot of companies who provide backup childcare and family support to their employees as a benefit. And so this was actually something that I would say was really in the third inning before COVID hit. It's backup care has been around for 20 years, but it's still, relatively speaking, a new concept for companies before COVID hit. And a lot of the companies that offered it were Fortune 500 companies, really the largest out there. But as time has gone on, you've seen more and more companies adopt it. And then, of course, COVID hits and there's this huge childcare crisis, and it really puts backup care even more so on the map than it already was. So the Nanny Network, the majority of what we do is corporate backup care. But that hasn't always been the case. Actually, when I bought the business in 2006, our bread and butter at the time was placing full-time and part-time nannies. As I said, I hired one of those before I bought the business. But and we still do that. There's still a good amount of long-term placements that we do and helping people to find nannies. We have a position also called a family assistant, and a family assistant is somebody who helps with the children, but also helps with household management tasks. And then we also have a separate brand, Sidekick, which is, it's really pure household assistance, no childcare involved. And so that's really household support in the format of laundry service, errand service, grocery shopping, simple meal prep, that type of thing. All designed to make lives just a little bit lighter and less, a little less stressful.
Yeah. Awesome. Everyone in my family always like jokes with me that I have such baby fever because they're like, you're so young, but I'm like obsessed with babies. So it all gets me excited. I was curious though, with you mentioned COVID hitting and all of that craziness, if you had any thoughts on this kind of shift to working from home, which obviously won't stay forever, or might change in the coming years, but if you had thoughts on how the like child care industry will change in consequence of COVID.
Yeah. So working from home, gosh, and I've thought so much about, families with infants and toddlers over this time frame, because I honestly don't know how parents were doing it. My youngest was 7 when everything shut down last spring, and even that felt like a huge challenge. My older kids were different, but just in terms of the virtual learning and everything. The COVID, working from home, it's anybody who has kids, and especially if they're toddlers, that if you have a toddler around, you really can't focus on anything else. They require your undivided attention. They're always you kind of have to hover over them. They're always climbing up on something. I always felt like my kids were always, about to fall off somewhere. So working from home is a real challenge. And I do talk to some companies who are like, oh, well, we're all still working from home, so we don't need backup care. And I was like, ooh, actually, you actually need it more when your parents are working from home, because it's really hard to create those boundaries. Super hard. And even if you've got older kids and they're in another room, if you're listening, you've got one ear on your Zoom call and another ear on what's going on with your kids fighting in the other room or whatever it is. So it's really hard to find focus when you're working from home. At least it is for me. Some people, I'm sure there are many out there that have done a much better job than I have, but I think it's a challenge. I mean, there's definitely pros and cons to it. And we had a hybrid model before COVID. The way we've designed I'm sitting in our office right now, and we just have 1,100 square feet of space in Towson, but that's really all we need, because not everybody's in the office all at once anyway, even before COVID, and people kind of just come and go, and we have that flexibility. So especially we're all women here that are working and super busy. And so, my personal philosophy has been, I always want the flexibility, and I want my employees to have the same.
Mm-hmm. So I saw on your website that it was an entirely female team, which is awesome. And one of the things that I saw when we did some kind of research on you is that you mentioned this, really love supporting women in business. So I wanted to ask, how can women or men or just like young entrepreneurs support other women in business, if you have like action items we can do or stuff we can take away from this episode?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's such a great camaraderie among entrepreneurs, and especially, among women entrepreneurs too. And I don't know if you all were on the podcast for Colgate when I was talking with Kate Anderson on entrepreneurship, which was so great, and just such a great just energy and vibe, and just so in my wheelhouse. I was so excited to be there like this. I mean, this is just so much fun. But being supportive, it's really like listening and celebrating other women entrepreneurs' ideas. We certainly always try and share different social content, or just engage with other small businesses or that we know, that we want to just support. And, I think just being there for each other, I think this is just more like a simple concept of not like some people are super judgmental and like to, pick apart certain things. But my attitude and mentality is always just one of being supportive and celebrate, all the success and progress, and focus on that.
100%. Have you, I guess this is the more pessimistic or the more kind of sad side of it, but have you faced any like very clear or issues having an all-female team, or any problems that you've run into because of that?
No, I mean, not real challenges. I've been fortunate. I mean, certainly, I worked in finance for a while. I worked in a male dominated field for a very long time. And, that had its own challenges. But, since I've been the CEO of the Nanny Network, I mean, and there are different type of women in business, right? I mean, there are those that are more collaborative, like I'm talking about. And then there are those that, might take kind of a queen bee approach or something like that. So you don't want to go out there, trusting everyone. But I think, just putting up boundaries and speaking up for yourself and protecting your business. One thing I have noticed, and this isn't necessarily gender, but, we have a contract, obviously, to do business with our company, and it's very clear, and we really haven't changed it much in the last 15 years, our fees and our policies and that type of thing. And we communicate very clearly throughout the process. We're very transparent, and we just always want to make sure that we set the right expectations and there are no surprises. And so I'm always just kind of surprised by how some people think that that the rules don't apply to them, kind of, and they will, sometimes I feel like because I'm a woman, they think they might be able to, bully me a little bit or get me to back down. And I always will look at any situation. But, I think just, sticking up for yourself and not being afraid to fight back when, you feel that someone is unfairly coming for you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Hopefully that does not happen a lot, but over the years.
Yeah, I'm always, my co-founder, Luke, he's a little more like assertive, just naturally, this is it. And I feel like a tendency to looser contract if they ask for something. And so it's really important that all women just, can stand up for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
What would you say is your favorite thing, either like a favorite story or just favorite part about your experience? Did you say 15 years with the Nanny Network?
Yep, it'll be 15 years on July 1st. Oh, gosh. It's been so different over the years. But I will say in recent years, I actually stumbled into a software development project that I would never have expected I would have gotten into. But again, this is one of those just cool things about being an entrepreneur is as my business started to grow, we were relying heavily on Google Drive and Google Sheets and trying to track things and jobs coming in and credit card payments and, just trying to track so much in a spreadsheet. And I had the good fortune of being introduced to a developer from another woman entrepreneur friend who had done a project with him. And so she gave me his information, and he had helped me to do a smaller project on our website about a year before. And so he started to getting to know our business, getting to know our industry. And also I was telling him about these Google Sheets. And so he was begging me. He's like, Dulany, please let me build you something. Like, this is what, software does. And this, all these things can be automated. And I was starting to see some turnover at the company because things were getting so out of hand because the demand was growing and it was just, there were too many steps. And so now it's been 2 years, actually, 2 years and 3 months since we started building our own software. And so the Nanny Network now has its own platform that is vertically integrated and includes everything that, we ever wanted because we needed it. So we designed it ourselves. So that's been really, really cool for me. And again, it was just kind of came as a surprise, but now I feel like I've got a knowledge of software development that I never otherwise would have had.
Yeah, that's awesome. We were just talking, we were on a podcast, my team and I, just a few weeks ago about automation and how it's just so crazy. You can make systems and just like with tech, turn them into something amazing. So I'm always like, should have been a comp sci major, but obviously didn't go that route. But so you're mentioning now.
I was a computer science major, and I'm probably in your same boat 2.5 years ago. There's so many things I could automate. So maybe I'll take you and actually pull the trigger on this.
Well, your sister might have some good connections in the software world.
Yeah.
But I think, coming and I'm curious, Maya, about your experience with development, but for me, it kind of landed in my lap, and I had the guy, I had the developer who I already kind of knew and had that relationship with. And so that was really valuable. And I feel, again, like I was able to make a quick kind of decision because I had already had an experience with him and had that trust. But, how's it gone for you?
Yeah, I would, well, saying that, I'm happy for you because it was definitely not the same way for us. Unfortunately, we had some connections and like more CTO figures, but finding reliable devs to actually work on the project was our kind of barrier. And then just a lack of knowledge. It's hard to oversee something that you yourself can barely understand the like vocabulary that you're using. But it's been a really fun learning experience, just a completely new thing, like you were saying. So it's been a good challenge. And I was curious though with that, like in your industry, I don't know much about it, but I would presume that there's not a ton of tech. And I saw one part that you were interested in buying the Nanny Network was kind of to like disrupt the industry that you saw there were problems with. Can you talk a bit about like bringing tech into an industry that it doesn't really exist in, and if there are pros or cons with that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And like I said, we developed our platform out of need because I had tried all the off the shelf options, and we had some, but everything was piecemealed and it was all very just kind of canned. And because our industry is so unique, it really felt like we needed something custom. And so, like I was saying before, we have really two sides to our business. We have the long-term placements, but then we have our temp staffing. And so there are other products out there really geared towards temp staffing, but nothing that also incorporated the long-term placements into it. And so there really isn't anything in our industry that does all of that. And I'm in a unique position, I think, where I can decide what to do with it. I have thought about that and whether or not to bring it to the marketplace.
Right.
Our industry right now is pretty small. And so, that is changing. I mean, with COVID and the spike in childcare demand, there are new entrants coming into the marketplace. So it's kind of in the back of my mind. I've got a lot of irons in the fire right now for just the Nanny Network and using the platform. But we'll see where the software may take us. There's an opportunity there.
Super exciting, because my follow-up question was going to be like, could you sell the software? Because I could also, don't know anything about the industry, but I'm imagining like parallel industries that maybe there's a gap in the market for that kind of technology as well.
Yes.
So, and then kind of switching gears a bit to more, I guess, like hypothetical stuff. Is there anything that you would advise yourself when you were a college or high school student? Just a piece of advice, anything, inspiration?
Yes, definitely. I'm trying to think of the biggest one. Because I've certainly, made a lot of mistakes over the years and continue to make them and learn from them. But I think for me, and just kind of the path that I've taken, kind of, having my children and I have been really involved and wanted to kind of straddle those lines and be great at all of it. And it is really hard to do. I have not managed to be great at everything yet. But I think just, having confidence and conviction in, what's important to you. And again, keeping those boundaries and just sticking with it. I think there's so many choices that someone makes throughout their life. But I think, for me, there was a little bit of uncertainty and just a lack of confidence there for a while. And I just wish I could go back and tell my college age self just to be more confident in kind of every situation.
Would you have would you have done things? I mean, you worked in private equity for a long time. Would you have jumped more into entrepreneurship earlier in that case, or did it all work out kind of how?
It all kind of worked out well. And I didn't really have that opportunity. I really kind of, all of a sudden it kind of fell in my lap and I felt like, things made sense. So I'm not sure that I would have made that switch prior, just because I didn't have a brand new idea of a company to start on my own. And so when I went to Wharton Business School, and one of the classes that I took there was called Entrepreneurship Through Acquisition. And so it kind of, brought the point, just raised the point that you don't necessarily have to start. There are a lot of companies for sale out there. And so, given I had always played sports throughout my life. And so, again, like it just seemed like the mission really lined up with being a cheerleader for women in business, being on a team of women, and helping to, just to hopefully, take that worry and concern out of the equation, because there's enough to worry about and juggle when you're a working parent, and we want to just make lives easier.
Yeah, for sure. So I have one last question, and this was all super awesome and interesting and kind of a heavy question, but what is the legacy that you want to leave?
So, I actually have been thinking about this a lot, because during COVID, the work-life balance was not quite there. I'm running a business that is, off the charts in terms of demand. And then we've got my 3 kids at home, and dealing with teenagers is a whole nother thing. I think for me, it really does come back to that belief of mine in women in business and equity in the workplace. And, I have 2 daughters, and, there are days when I'm like, oh my gosh, what example am I setting for them? Because sometimes I feel like I'm pulling my hair out, and, I'm all about balance. That's kind of always been my thing. Work hard, play hard. I had just always had a lot of fun and wherever I've been. So I think, from a legacy standpoint, just, I want my daughters to know, and girls out everywhere, that they have options, and, that they, should keep their options open and do what they want to do, not what somebody else wants them to do. So, for me, whether my kids decide to, my daughters decide to pursue careers or not, I just want them to have those choices and be able to pursue what's in their heart. So.
Amazing. Yeah.
Sounds like they have a very great role model and example to do that. Is there anywhere they can find, I don't know, social, website, anything like that to shout out the Nanny Network or Sidekick?
Yeah, no, that's great. We've got, the Nanny Network website is nanny-network.com. And then the Sidekick website is household-sidekick.com. And then we have social channels for both. We've got some videos on Vimeo that we made last summer that I think helped to showcase just the inner fabric of the Nanny Network. But no, I really appreciate you guys inviting me to be on.
Thank you so much, Dulany.
Thanks, guys, so much for watching. We're going to be releasing episodes weekly. Be sure to like, subscribe, all the other things, all the social medias, comment, share, retweet, copy, paste, link. Isn't that the TikTok thing? Just full send it. Get it done. Hope you guys enjoy.